remotely, I guess, or secondhand, like arm's reach length, what you guys have been doing and following the development of our chain, and with great interest. I think there's tremendous possibility, and I want to also just add that I really love the organic way that you guys have all like kind of generated the energy that you have and brought the people that you've brought together that I've seen. I don't know a lot, but from what I've seen, it's super exciting what you're doing, and I just think there's a lot of potential here. And I think it was Greg Meredith said somewhere in one of the videos that I saw online that he quoted, well, I don't know if he was actually quoting him, but I thought he was quoting Jerry Garcia talking about, how this whole thing is unfolding. And he said, there's nobody in control. And I think that that's true. I think I feel, and I don't want to be too weird about this, but I feel like there's a, sort of an unseen force at work here that's bringing together some really amazing people around some incredible technology. So happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
No, this is just great, and thank you so much. If I seem a little distracted these days, it's because I am getting messages coming at me from like 1,000 different directions. This is fantastic.
Yeah, I haven't briefed Michael on all of the recent events. So he's not up to speed on the opportunities around RSong and Immersion Networks license beyond a very high level concept of what they are. But there's a lot of details he's oblivious to at the moment. With that, if we can fill in those details, that's great. If we can't, I can have a conversation with him later.
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah.
We can't really get full.
Yeah, there's lots and lots of stuff that's we can talk about, and there's lots and lots of stuff, unfortunately, that we can't. And I have to say that whenever I stray into territory where I can't just be radically transparent, I get into trouble.
Yeah, I'm that way too.
That's just not in my nature.
I totally understood though, and I've got some things that I would love to share with you guys too, but I can't. But let's just say that all of the things that we can't talk about are probably part of the glue that's bringing everybody together. So,
well, Michael, maybe I can ask you: have you gotten a chance to check the RSong app on your phone?
I have. I downloaded it about 30 seconds after Ed shared it with me.
Okay, cool. So you've got that. So that's definitely one step. We are going to be collecting emails from different artists and people who want to be kind of more involved in the development of this on the rsong.org website. I've been working with some different people trying to get that happening so that we can, as I put in my blog post, really get the artists developing the right financial model that works for us. Because I'm an artist too, and so are you, and anyway, so we're going to be collecting that stuff. So we'll have a nice, healthy panel of brilliant, amazing people who pick their music on RSong, which would be amazing. Where we are now, I guess maybe some other people have more to add, but sure.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, that was kind of one of my first comments, and I think that might be. I'm technical enough to, confuse myself and other people, but
I'm not.
Okay, well, I do have I have some technical background, and I can follow the sort of bouncing ball when people are talking about technical things, but probably my bigger asset is my ability to bring resources together. I'm kind of like a fly, I guess, or maybe sort of glue. I can connect dots very well. and I have my fingers in a lot of different baskets. So the first sort of reaction that I had to the RSong DAP when I saw it was that yeah, you need a lot more traction with artists and a user base. Obviously that'll come. I know it's just the first iteration of it, and a lot of I know enough to know that there's a lot of really cool heavy lifting that's already gone on to get to there. And I immediately felt like, wow, there's something I can help here with. I think I can help as you guys figure out exactly what the business model is going to be. I'm working on some initiatives through my work. I should just also share that I spent the summer, we've engaged K&L Gates as our legal counsel, and as part of that team, they put together a fantastic lobbying team in DC, and we spent a couple weeks this summer meeting with all the key stakeholders on the MLC or the MMA, pre-drafting it, and well, not pre-drafting it, but pre-signing it, obviously. And I've also been very I've been present at a lot of sort of high-level kind of blue-chip branding blockchain events, notably the Christie's Summit in London this summer, and then the IBM LA Summit a few weeks ago. And I have some initiatives coming up that I've been working on for the last year that are starting to come to fruition with regards to the MLC that I think could be really well-timed and an excellent integration point for what I understand is happening with RChain and RSong with regards to the MLC. And in the context of that, I could potentially position RSong as a cornerstone technology. And I don't know how much you guys have been working with. I know you're working with MIT, so you probably got some inroads that are better than mine with regards to the MLC. But
You're muted. You just muted yourself. Michael, you're muted, Michael. Michael, oh boy.
Yep, can't hear Michael.
Yeah, Michael, you're muted. You're totally muted, Michael. Okay. Oh boy. Okay. Does somebody want to say?
There you're back.
Basically,
There you go. Okay. Yes.
We lost you for the last 2 minutes.
You were.
oh, you did? All right. I'm sorry. All right, just to recap really quick, I have an initiative coming together with regards to the MLC that we could potentially add a fantastic.
Muted again. Muted. Definitely muted.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Lost you again, Michael.
Oh boy. Okay.
I guess it's because I keep getting somebody keeps trying. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. And when you say MLC, you're trying to say MMA, is that right?
Well, the MLC is the Mechanical Licensing Collective. That is the entity that's going to be the sort of governing body that's going to implement the directives of the MMA.
Got it. Okay.
So the MMA is like the document that has been passed into law. The MLC is the group of entities that are going to be working to implement the directives of the MMA.
Right. And do you see that as a large effect on other blockchain-based music projects that are going to be released, or do you see it more as affecting those that are already in place?
I'm sorry, you cut out just a minute there because I got another beep, but say when we're done.
I was wondering if you see the MMA as something that is going to affect a lot of future blockchain music projects, or if it's more something that's going to affect systems that are more already in place, kind of in the terrestrial land.
Yeah, well put. Well, there's let's see, how do I answer that? I think that what I learned this summer is a couple things relative to that question. One is that I came from a very kind of liberal arts, left-leaning perspective education, and I learned this summer that our system of government would not function without lobbyists. Like, it's just, they're so critical to being able to position the right things in the right way in the right amount of time for just completely overburdened congressional, participants. So I bring that up because we spent some money to be present in DC around the creation of the MMA, because we felt that there's going to be a food fight about, amongst all these technology providers that are out there with all these sprawling, highly complex legacy systems that, you know, in truth, really don't do a very good job at some relatively simple things. And so I think that the MMA is intended to bring the music industry into the present and hopefully look also into the future. And so I think that it's going to. Here's how I think that I'd like to participate with you guys and to answer this question very simply is I think that you have the ability to lay some cornerstones for technology going forward. Here's what I think we should do. I think you guys, if you take what you've done with RSong and we use that as like the sort of genesis block of the song registry that's going to get created by the MLC, and then we start adding catalog to it as a proof of concept for key players, key stakeholders in the sort of next 120 days. Once we prove that going forward that there's a solution that streamlines this whole thing, it really doesn't matter what anybody else is doing, because we'll have a simple solution that is very powerful, very effective, and we'll have a sort of pole position on implementation that once that's done, why look anywhere else? I mean, there's all these other solutions out there that do different things, but it's just kind of being at the right place at the right time.
No, you're absolutely right, Michael, and I have to say that I'm this is exactly the kind of thing that I have the kind of instrument that I have been aiming for, or sorry, instrument is not the right word, instrumentality that I've been aiming for, and more to the point, when we set up RSong, and this was all by intention, we set it up so that we didn't actually tokenize the credit that goes back to players. All the contributors get is a fraction of a playback count, right? So we determined, for better or for worse, that an entire playback was 1 unit, and then we use the metadata to with associated with each song or audio content to apportion that playback count, that unit out to the different parties. But a fraction of a playback does not equal something you could take to the store or the coffee shop and get a cup of coffee, right?
Right.
You have to turn that into a token. And I apologize to the other people on the call who have heard this spiel before, but Michael hasn't. and it's probably worth repeating a few times because maybe other people will get excited about this. So then the artist has to make a decision about how to turn that fraction of a playback count into something that they can turn into, something they can use in the grocery store or the coffee shop. So one approach is they can use the token that runs on the RSong network, the Rev, and they could just price their contributions out in terms of Rev, and that has certain advantages. because in the not too distant future, the Rev will have lots and lots of pairs of things that you can trade it with, like USD or Bitcoin or Ethereum or other tokens of that kind. And so that they can find a path to something that the grocery store will value. Like USD.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean,
but
yeah,
let me just finish the thought here. It's a sorry, my sound bites are a little bit bigger than than 1 minute. So but they also have some other options, and those other options are they could produce their own tokens. Right, so you could have a Taylor Swift token or a Bruce Springsteen token, or yada yada yada. Modest Mouse token. Any of these, and then because they have specific things that they can give that no one else can, token holders could then parlay that into, for example, let's say the California Guitar Trio had their own token. Then they could parlay that into backstage passes with the California Guitar Trio, or guitar lessons from Paul Richards or Hideo. Right? These are all things that are specific to these groups that would give the tokens extra value. Right? And then there's this whole balance between people's strong, and we've seen this in all the collectible markets, people's strong drive to gamify. Right? They want to be able to game the system. They want to be able to play the game. All of these things, whether it's baseball cards and comics or crypto tokens. Right? That's a strong drive. And the other drive they have is for convenience. They really wanted to just be simple. It's like, why can't I just get tickets to this concert? Damn it!
That's right.
Right? And so there's a sweet spot in there that we think is going to be really interesting to find. And now let me bring it back to the MLC. We think that the artists should have a key seat at the table. So the reason we left it open was because we want to invite the artists to come and tell us what they think. We want them to get involved in the process, engaged, and take ownership, and have the artists and the technologists and the people who are and the regulators and all of the other stakeholders in this process come together. And I'll be honest, I think it's both the best thing that we could do for music and for people who love music, and for people who are looking on, and for marketing, to have that conversation in public.
Okay. Yeah, you just said a whole lot there. I mean, yes. Just my bullet responses are like, yes. I mean, fucking awesome. I mean, amazing. Just like definitely the way to be thinking. I have been so sort of focused on the copyright registration piece and the legal side of this thing, and like what I have found in my 30 years of experience in the business to be, kind of the dirtiest part of the whole business. So my mind, but my passion is the gamification of the artistic side of the thing. I guess I should say it this way. I think you've set the table really well for a lot of people to sit down. I do think there's still some runway left before you're going to get an artist or two that are going to really kind of pull a David Bowie here, and they're going to gamify their catalog. They're going to drive the creation of a secondary market. They're going to bring their fan base and get them involved. And they're going to use this tool in a way that nobody ever has even thought about yet. I think that's coming, but I think it's still a ways off. I think right now you've got some very fundamental pieces to continue to put together. And for me, just from my perspective, very sort of selfishly, I guess, I think that the approach is for the copyright registration, the very kind of simple, boring functionality of RSong to be able to track when, where, how, and why the music is being played. That creates a very strong incentive for monetization and execution. On top of that, then you can start to build the secondary markets that will evolve from that very, very basic piece. But that's where I see the easiest approach, the lowest hanging fruit. The piece that I'd like to start banging the drum on with you guys is, I would like to say, with part of the initiative that I'm working on, I'd like to go back to the people that I met at the Copyright Office, who I was lobbying for the addition of an audio file at the song registration point. What I see is the next clearly intended step is to go back with a proof of concept with RSong at the cornerstone, and say, we're going to register this, a bunch of this about a couple thousand songs in this first catalog, and we're going to put an audio file in at the Genesis block, and we're going to be able to track where that music goes and who plays it and how.
That's an awesome idea, and we can't tell you more about what we're working on for that on this call, but maybe on one-on-one. I did want to just say, if anybody else wants to jump in with anything, I put a couple, there's one musician called Anna Marley. I found her recently on the internet. She's tokenized her music. There's a link to her in the chat. She's a really interesting person. I'm in touch with her now. She kind of is figuring out what's going on here, but I think she'll be an amazing person to invite because she's really pioneering a lot. And there's one other musician that somebody shared in here who's working on a similar thing, Tatiana Moroz. So if you guys are interested in checking out those two musicians, they might be people who can provide some input, since they've kind of done this by themselves. And I'm going to assume they're both women, which is pretty amazing.
So Ed and I have actually spoken with Tatiana on a couple of occasions at least.
Awesome.
And she actually had me on her show at one point.
That's awesome. Cool. So we'll make sure that they both know what's going on with RSong. And I don't know, is there anybody else? I don't want to get too bogged down with the, not bogged down, but we've been talking about the MMA for a long time. Does anybody else want to jump in with anything? Hi, Rich.
Hi, I made a comment in the chat, but I was glad to hear Greg use the word regulator in the discussion of tokenization, because it's something I need to do my due diligence on. I know that there are open questions about the securitization requirements of tokens, and so it's something that I think we need. I think I would advise the people working with RSong to consider message discipline to a certain degree, so that like there can be experimentation. I like the idea of doing things in public and having all parties at the table, but also like knowing that there may be issues with tokenization, to do it right certain ways, and other ways invite regulation. And so, and I think in the United States, at least right now, there's some liability issues with the fact that it's so unclear. But again, I would defer to anyone who knows better about that. But I was glad to hear the word in the stakeholders as this technology is put out.
Well, I'm glad to see you back on this call. I wasn't sure if we were going to see you again.
Oh, I'm here. I'm here in
Okay,
Seattle.
good.
I love music and.
Well, yeah, you remember a couple of weeks ago, you were like, "Well, I'm not sure if I'm going to come back." And I thought, "Oh, dear."
Well,
That's
here I am.
Maybe we should turn it to Paul Richards. Paul, you're on the road right now. You're in a hotel someplace.
I am in a hotel room in a small town in Iowa.
Tell everybody what you're doing. It's amazing.
I'm on a month-long tour with the California Guitar Trio, and we are playing in actually a tour for an organization called Community Concert Series, and we are playing in these small towns all throughout the Midwestern states. The first show of the tour was in Colorado, and tonight we're playing in a place called Indianola, Iowa, and we believe that, you know, as our group is made up of people from 3 different countries, we're to these people in these small towns, we're bringing acoustic guitar music and a message of unity with to showing an example of how people from different parts of the world can work together and harmonize. So that is what I'm doing now. But I wanted to congratulate Nora on her well-written blog post for RSong. I think it was written in a way that everybody can understand and relate to. So good job on that, Nora. And yes, for Michael, I wanted to ask you just a quick question, not to get too derailed back on the MMA stuff, but I think that the MMA and the MLC is headed in the right direction. It has lots of good things. I've also read some articles that are critical and saying that there's some things in there that are not so great. And I just wanted to know if you could comment about that just briefly.
Well, I just saw that Ed posted my LinkedIn profile, and if you go to my LinkedIn profile and look at my post from, I think, sometime in August, I have a picture of a very well-known industry figure giving his sort of signature salute. And that was kind of where my position regarding the MMA started. I was very hostile, openly hostile to it. I saw from my firsthand experience working with one of the most iconic artists or groups of the last 50 years, and the journey that I took with them as a member of a 3-man team that literally took on the entire industry, which closed ranks around the sort of big lie in defense of just the absolute theft of this member of the band's ownership and stake in the songs that he co-wrote with the other founder of the band. This was very standard practice. It was standard practice in the 60s, late 50s and the 60s. And my experience with this band in particular in this litigation, which lasted for 4 years and went to a jury trial in which we were ultimately victorious, was just an expose of just the dirtiest laundry of the music business. And I mean, you know, I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with the history of the music business, but, you know, read books like Stiffed or Hitmen or, you know, I don't know, there's a bunch of them. I can recommend a long reading list to anybody that's interested, but, you know, the way that the industry started in the 60s, with the first sea change that really impacted the growth of the music business and the advent of the 45, it was very common for professional people, lawyers usually, that were coming from New York out to the West Coast to get jobs at some of the bigger labels. Back then there were effectively the big 7, the 7 publishing companies, which are now the big 3. They own 95% of the music on the planet. Warner Brothers, Sony, and Universal. What you've seen over the last 50 years in the music business from a very high level is the consolidation of ownership of everything in the hands of the big three, consolidation of distribution of everything in the hands of a handful of major streaming services, most notably Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And now with the MMA, you've seen, I'm going to put my artist hat on here for my legal representative of the artist rights movement hat on for a second, of which is just one of many hats that I wear equally, I have to add. You now also have with the MMA the consolidation of the copyright administration. America is the largest music market on the planet by a long shot. As the president noted in the signing ceremony of the MMA. And there's a sort of sovereign directive for the United States to be the centralized copyright administrative service for music globally. So I think that that's kind of the bigger picture point of the MMA and the MLC. And obviously, there's, as Panos Panay from the OMI has said, the industry is about a $45 billion industry annually right now across all sectors. And it's very, very difficult for an artist to make a living unless they're in the top sort of 3% of the food chain. And of the major stakeholders in the music industry, and this was the drum that I pounded in Congress with Congress. There's three main stakeholders in the MMA. They're the streaming services, they're the publishers, and the artists. Without any of the three, the whole thing doesn't work. But the only entity at the table that doesn't have real-time access to the data that is being created by that triumvirate is the artist. The artist has really no idea. The artist relies on the pros or their labels or the publishers or the streaming services directly for data about when, where, how their music is being played and how much they're getting paid. And I'm not kidding you. 2 years ago, I sat in a meeting with some of the highest level people in the industry. We're looking at royalty statements over the last 10 years on paper issued quarterly. So that's when I started Iconic Artists. I literally left the meeting in the middle of the meeting and went and called some technology people that I work with. And I was like, look, we got to do something about this because this industry is still working in the dark ages with regards to reporting. And then, there's a couple companies that are doing it, but you have to be invited to participate, like Cobalt in particular is who I'm thinking of.
Michael. So, yeah. I mean, this is a perfect launching point to touch on maybe some other input. Like Kayvon just joined the call, and Kayvon just did a hackathon in the MIT area, nice. just around RSong and some of its reporting capabilities. Kayvon, can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Good morning. Yes, thank you. First of all, they love us here. I can't even start telling you how much they really, really are impressed. There was an event last night at MIT. Daza just came to our room and asked if he could do a video and do a drill down of the RSong and what it does and what it doesn't do, and it was really good. And I actually thought our story as to what we bring is not only is important, but it's equally as important to tell them what RSong doesn't do. Because now people are expecting that, my car doesn't start in the morning. It's RSong's fault. It's just, it's just amazing how much I don't really know how to manage the expectations that I'm seeing on a lot of our chat lines and how out of scope a lot of the requests are. So my hat is off to you for addressing those. But going back to MIT and Boston, great reception. They really love us here. I had a lot of conversation. A lot of people want to know how it is that we're doing it. And and basically really want to know how we solve the deployment problems, and the fact that we could have this music in a real time kind of setting. So getting a lot of good positive feedbacks here.
That's awesome. I think also, I mean, I have to address a couple of things, Michael, that were a part of the language, and it's a language that I think hypnotizes us all. And so I feel morally bound to respond. So to say that these top 3 companies own 95% of the music makes me just laugh. Music is infinite. If I could share with you 1/10 of the music that pours into my brain all the time, you'd know that none of those companies own that music. And I'm just like a poor, humble musician. I got nothing by comparison to what's going on most of the musicians in the planet.
I'll be very, very happy to hear that 1/10 of the music that comes through you, Greg. We would all be in a much better mood if we could all.
So I want us to keep sight of a different aspect of reality, right? You know, it's one thing that it's very important that we are all engaged in the process of making sure people get compensated for their efforts fairly, right?
Yeah,
That everyone is cared for, that everyone is fed and have the things that they need in order to continue to produce this wonderful music, right? And to produce concerts and make recordings and all of those things. That's very important. At the same time, I think that there's this other aspect of reality, which is that, you know, these legal institutions and the regulators and other kinds of things, they don't own the music. They never have, and they never will. Yeah, they own certain systems of access and distribution, right? And as long as we continue to help the artists become better and better informed about what their access options are and what their distribution options are, then there can be a more healthy and sustainable and regenerative culture and a mechanism by which people are maintained.
I think what you're saying, Greg, is that they own certain song files, but they don't own the art of making music.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about it, right, most of assuming we don't entirely melt the planet, most of the music is in front of us.
Yeah.
It's by the 13s and 14-year-olds of, you know, right now, right? And when they grow up and have kids, it's going to be by their kids and their kids. And with, you know, the kind of innovation that we see from Immersion and others, we also know that the delivery of music is going to radically change.
Right.
So the back catalog is a tiny portion of even just the music that is associated with technology coming out. Most of the music is in front of us.
Yeah.
That's definitely where we should be coming from here in this venue, because this is looking forward. I totally hear what you're saying. The 95% ownership of the global music is the past. That's the back catalogs. And, you know, I don't want to demonize the streaming services or the publishers. They are very, very important. The streaming services have recreated the music service, the music industry as we know it. And, you know, they provide a tremendous value to everybody. And it's just now a question of how we can kind of level the playing field so that the industry as a whole goes from a $45 billion a year industry to a $100 billion a year industry. It's very possible. And this is I believe that you guys are on the right track as far as creating something that can create that platform. You know, the secondary markets. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Kayvon, I wanted to get back to something that you said about managing expectations, kind of getting a little bit more specific onto what we're actually working on. I think the trick with part of it right now is that Immersion is a little bit under wraps right now themselves, right? So like when I wrote my post, I'm sure, when you wrote the white paper, because I don't know if you guys know, Kayvon wrote the official RSong white paper, which is a very good document. There's certain things that we can't talk about yet because Immersion themselves have not come out with them. I mean, have you been to Immersion in Seattle? You're muted, by the way.
Thank you. I have not been to Immersion. However, we gave Immersion a 2-week chance to basically go through the white paper and make sure that it manages what they want to expose and what they don't want to expose.
And they did that.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I just think honestly, this is just me saying, I think everybody should at some point in their lives get to go to Immersion in person because it's just amazing. But yeah, I think that's part of the reason why it's a little tricky for us to manage expectations about the app, is because people are so interested in the people I think that come to this sort of know a little bit about blockchains, they maybe know a little about our chain, but they don't really know much about what's going on with the other piece of it, which is all the stuff that Immersion is creating. You know?
Right. So, and I get that question here in Boston as well.
Yeah.
And I tried from the beginning to answer that question the same way that when Greg approached me and we started working on this to design it, me, Greg, Kent, and all of us, basically give him the problem and how we solved it, and hopefully that would help. Greg asked me to develop a framework for distributed apps, not a specific framework for Immersion. It turns out that RSong is the Immersion is the first implementation for this framework. So what I'm saying is, Immersion technology is fantastic and great, but by no means it's the limitation of RSong.
Right. Well, yeah, we have plans to potentially use it for a lot of different applications.
Exactly. So that's why I guess what I'm basically saying is I'm trying to remove myself from talking about Immersion technologies because I'm not exposed to that.
Yeah, and I think that you made a really key point and a critical point, right? Which is that, you know, in many ways, our chain with RSong is also trying to democratize other things, not just the reporting and accounting and delivery of music content. One of the things that we're trying to democratize is a whole swath of data market applications, photo sharing, video sharing. You know, take your pick, right? And what I mean by democratization is with the framework that Kayvon developed, a team with about 2 engineers in a couple of months' time can get to as compelling an MVP as RSong is. It's really it means that anybody who wants to be able to deliver these kinds of applications, it's now within reach. It's the equivalent of okay, boys and girls, here's GarageBand. What can you do? It's like GarageBand for data market apps.
Yeah, Greg, this is so exciting for me, and I see that very clearly. What you're describing, the opportunity is so broad and in front of us.
I wanted to also mention Fabian is not on the call today. Fabian is at Womax in the Canary Islands off of the coast of Africa. What a lucky duck. But Claire Tolan is also there. And next week, I guess we'll hear some updates about that. But I know Fabian is passing out some kind of information about RSong to people at the Womax conference, which is the World Music Conference. So hopefully he'll be able to connect us with more inspiring, amazing people, which is very exciting, really. I mean, RSong is in the Canary Islands. Come on.
That's awesome. I have to jump off early because I've got to prepare for the staff meeting, our chain staff meeting. But thank you, Ed, so much for bringing Michael to the conversation, and thanks for joining. And Michael, thank you for joining. It's great to have you here, and I hope you'll come back. It's really, really good to have your presence and your expertise. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Greg,
Awesome. Maybe we can pass it on to Jonathan. If I just saw you posting something in the chat about something you're working on in Asia with respect to RSong. Jonathan, do you want to talk about that? Or maybe not.
Yeah. So I don't think this crowd knows what I've done here for ArtChain Asia, but ArtChain Asia has basically been just two of us, myself and Jocelyn. 2 weeks ago, before it was politically expedient and absolutely necessary, I instituted austerity measures for ArtChain Asia, and I've gone down to minimum wage myself, where I'm basically getting paid hamburger flipper salary for my work for ArtChain. And I've asked ArtChain Co-op to allow me to reallocate the rest of my salary to onboarding other parties. One of the parties they desperately want to onboard is a fellow who owns a marketing company based in London with many people in Shanghai, who has major contacts in the Chinese music industry, which to all of you in North America sounds like this, whatever kind of thing. But these people have contacts with the #1 television entertainment show in China. They have contacts with Baidu, which is arguably as big as Amazon, with NetEase and other streaming companies who might want to license RSong.
Cool.
I want Lei Hao from London and his team of 10 people in Shanghai and other countries where these Chinese companies are to try to find sub-licensing deals for RSong or for the immersion sub-licensing. And we have to be really careful about this because there's so much confusion in the community about, is it RSong? Is it immersion? What is it exactly? But we really need to, Co-op needs to take seriously the efforts that I'm taking in China here for simultaneously austerity and redirecting my tiny, literally going on fumes budget for ArtChain Asia to try to find some solutions for income to ArtChain. Simultaneously, I'm talking to many funds in China, crypto funds that could possibly provide bridge loans to ArtChain to get us through this time. And I'm just really frustrated, frankly, and I'm doing the best I can with a team of 2. I just wanted to share that.
Well, Jonathan, if I were in Asia, I would help you.
Jonathan, just all kudos and respect to you. And yes, we are taking it very seriously. We are absolutely ready to work with you to onboard those people. And I hope that you're working with Lilia to schedule the conversations so that we can get that up and running. We are absolutely dead serious about supporting your efforts. Really help you. We want to help you help us.
Okay, Greg, I'm sorry. I should have worked through Lilia for your scheduling. I tried you on Signal and other mechanisms, and I know that you're totally slammed, so I will work through Lilia. And I didn't realize that Fabian is in the Canary Islands slammed with a conference. So, Greg, we really have to follow up on this lead from Lei, who is so eager to help us find sub-licensing in China.
Oh, this is awesome. This is really good news. I'm excited. Yeah. So if you could, I mean, I really need Lilia's help here because I am hit on every front.
I know, Greg. And you know that despite the fact that we disagree on some fundamental things, that I want nothing but the greatest success for this whole project.
Yes, indeed.
And
indeed.
because of you, Jonathan, we might actually get there.
All right, guys, I really have to jump now. I'll talk to you soon. Ciao.
Bye, Greg.
Okay, does anybody else have anything they want to add or a question? We have a couple minutes if anybody.
Well, just a really quick question. I'd love to get Michael up, and he's based in Oregon, correct? I'd love to get you up to Seattle, Redmond to visit Immersion Networks. And so how do I go about that? I don't recall the folks at Immersion and how to make that introduction.
Well, right now, I don't know if they're setting up any tours. Well, I mean, it's not really a tour. It's more of like a visit. I don't know if they're setting up any of that stuff right now because they're so focused on other projects that I cannot speak about on a public call, but
Yeah.
I'm sure there will be a chance, but I'm not sure if there will be a chance between now and the end of the year. I think they're kind of, they have a bit of a private attitude right now for their own creative purposes. Which
That's fair enough. Let me just put out the wish, Michael. If you're in Seattle area, let me know. And if anyone can provide that introduction, I'd appreciate it.
I can, Ed, I can get you Ryan Boudinot's email. He's with Immersion, and he's been very helpful, and somebody that Paul and I both know because he was at our Sky Muse recording session where we were we the first group to debut the use of the spatial microphone? Was that us?
Yeah, I believe I was there, or I was there shortly after. But anyway, I appreciate that intro.
Yeah,
Thank you, Nora.
Yeah, okay, so I'll make sure to connect you with Ryan Boudinot then, and he'll let you know like when you guys can come in.
I went to ask Michael. I think you were about to talk about secondary markets.
Yeah, I just really briefly, because I think it's something that's in its latent stages, but I just referenced the David Bowie bond float, 10, 15 years ago, where he raised $50 million. And the way the industry has historically worked, as you all know, is the artist, basically leverages their future when they take a record company advance. And I just think that there are definite secondary market things that can happen around the gamification and the tokenization of a artist release. The artist can, I think, what one potential outcome of the RSong ecosystem is that an artist could issue a token and basically sell interest in their future success, and they could incentivize their fan base to evangelize on their behalf, crowdsource. It could be a way that anti-piracy measures could be implemented, and I want to underscore that because from where I'm standing and what I'm doing, that's the banner that catches everybody in the same bucket. All stakeholders have a vested interest in seeing piracy reduced, and I think that this is something that RSong can be effective in implementing. So, yeah, the secondary market thing is huge, and that's where it's all going. And that's where the industry is going to grow from a $45 billion industry to a $100 billion industry. And that's how, artists will make more money, and so will their fans.
Hey, Michael.
Yes,
you need to know about a project in Korea. Not many people pay attention to what's happening in Korea, but it's called Switch.
I do.
Okay. You know Switch.io?
Switch.io?
Yes, SWYTCH.io.
Okay.
I have a relationship with them now